tired of seeing Star Wars fans debate about whether or not Rey Skywalker is a Mary Sue. For those who don't know, a Mary Sue is a character who happens to be perfect in every single way, and never goes through any character development. I don't think Rey is a Mary Sue at all. Yes, she is strong in the Force, but she has a clear character arc present throughout the entire sequel trilogy. Rey spends the entirety of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi trying to find her place in the universe. Despite being constantly told that she's a nobody from nowhere, she ultimately creates her own family within the Resistance. Then, in The Rise of Skywalker, it's revealed that Rey is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious. At first, she's worried that she'll become no better than her grandfather, but her found family ultimately gives her the courage to stop him once and for all. So now you may be wondering, what does any of this have to do with this video? Well, I occasionally see some Star Wars fans who also disagree with the idea of Rey being a Mary Sue bring up Galen Marek, aka Starkiller, arguing that he's a Gary Stu, which is basically the male equivalent of a Mary Sue. For those who don't know, Galen Marek is the protagonist of Star Wars The Force Unleashed, a video game released back in 2008, bridging the time gap between the prequel and original trilogies in the Star Wars Legends continuity. I had so much fun playing this game growing up, and Starkiller would become one of my favorite Legends characters because of it. Although I understand why people would say that he's a Gary Stu, I think there's more to his story than meets the eye. I think it's best to begin with the plot summary of The Force Unleashed. This game's story begins exactly a year after Revenge of the Sith. Darth Vader has traveled to Kashyyyk to hunt down a Jedi Knight who survived Order 66. The Dark Lord of the Sith completes his mission, but not before learning that this Jedi has a son. Vader chooses to take this boy in as his apprentice, giving him the codename of Starkiller. After 16 years of training, Vader starts sending his secret apprentice on missions to hunt down other fugitive Jedi, aided by his pilot, Juno Eclipse, and his holodroid Proxy. Note that the Wii, PlayStation Portable, and PlayStation 2 versions of The Force Unleashed also had Vader's apprentice complete the Jedi trials while training at what's left of the Jedi Temple in between these Jedi hunts. Eventually, Emperor Palpatine learns of Starkiller's existence and forces Vader to kill his apprentice. Vader does obey his master's bidding, but recovers and revives his apprentice afterwards. Starkiller is then given a new mission: distract Palpatine's spies by uniting the Empire's enemies. He does as his master wishes with the help of not only Juno and Proxy, but also Ram Koda, the very first Jedi that he ever hunted down for Vader. Marek would end up getting betrayed by his master again, as the Sith Lord was just using him to capture the rebel leaders. This is what ultimately convinces the secret apprentice to travel to the Death Star and rescue the rebel leaders, fighting and defeating both Vader and Palpatine in the process. Starkiller ultimately sacrifices himself so Juno could evacuate the rebel leaders. The game ends with the official formation of the Rebel Alliance, with Marek's family crest being used as their symbol. At the beginning of the game, Galen Marek is completely loyal to Darth Vader. This makes sense, considering that the Dark Lord of the Sith basically replaced his father, training him to be his apprentice ever since he found him as a little kid. He was so certain that he and Vader would ultimately overthrow the Emperor, and he would do anything to make sure that they would achieve their mutual goal. This started to change when Starkiller started his new mission to unite the Emperor's enemies. The secret apprentice started to grow stronger bonds with his new allies, which is something that Vader points out to him. Vader's second betrayal made him disillusioned with the Sith cause, leading him to consider himself to be a Jedi. The strongest example of these new bonds would go to Juno Eclipse. The secret apprentice initially didn't really know what to think of her, but they started to bond as the game progressed. Marek's shuttle pilot was branded a traitor to the Empire, and became a prisoner on Vader's science vessel, the Empirical. Despite being ordered to sever all ties to his past, Starkiller ultimately chose to save Eclipse, who was completely on board with uniting the Emperor's enemies. Even after finding out that Marek was still working for Vader, she still stood by him. It was this love that ultimately helped Starkiller turn away from the dark side and eventually die a hero. So now you may be wondering, what about Starkiller's force powers? Well, one has to remember that LucasArts advertised The Force Unleashed as a game where you were an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. Pun very much intended. And it's not like Marek doesn't struggle at all either. Remember the scene where he force-pulls an Imperial Star Destroyer out of the sky? Well, he initially doesn't believe that he could do it until Coda pointed out that size matters not. The novelization expands in this scene as he gets overwhelmed by this event, until ultimately deciding to do it for Juno. Overall, I think Galen Marek is a more complex character than Star Wars fans give him credit for. At this point, you probably noticed that I completely ignored Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Well, the second and final installment of this video game series sees you play as a clone of Galen Marek, and I feel like he deserves his own video someday. Hello, I see that you have reached the end of this video. If you liked what you just saw, you can give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter at DialogueNerdy. If you really want to, you can also ring the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video.